Hi, everybody. I'm Cameron Jones. I'm from TechSoup, and I'm so happy to talk to you all today. TechSoup is a nonprofit based in San Francisco, California. Oops, wait, let me share my screen here because I have a very quick presentation, which I'll try to do I'll run through quickly, and then you can ask me additional questions later as you have them. But we are a nonprofit. We're based in San Francisco, and we operate globally. And so all of our programs are available to nonprofits around the world. And we are a nonprofit ourselves. And our mission is really to support other nonprofits in capacity building through technology. So before I kind of dive into all the stuff that we have, how many of you know about TechSoup or are members, or raise your hand if you know about us and are members? Or you can put it in the chat. That's the other option too.
Susan says
Passageways is a member. Great to hear, Susan. Oh, we got the thumbs up from Susan using the little Zoom feature. I love that. So I take it Tisha and Christopher and Penny, you're, Goodwill is a member. Great. That's fantastic to hear. And it looks like Penny maybe not, and Tisha maybe not as well. Okay, great. So as I said, we operate globally. We operate through a partner network around the world. And so our programs are translated into local languages everywhere. Down, there we go. We have lots of different resources for nonprofits to help them with technology. So we have everything from products, including software and hardware, to services that are around kind of a technology advice, planning, implementation, and management of technology. We have online courses and training for individual tools or skills. And then we have lots of resources like webinars. We do events, in-person events, and virtual events. And we have kind of online learning cohorts also that come through. And generally, our mission is really to help organizations understand how to use technology so that they can work more efficiently and effectively. These are kind of a list. This isn't exhaustive, I don't think, but this is kind of a list of many of the providers that we work with to offer special nonprofit discounts or donations to organizations across the United States. Google, Dell, and Microsoft are obviously the big headliners there, but we have lots of really useful products from in the hardware space, in the software, and kind of online services. We also have, so one of our big areas is software. Zoom is highlighted here, has been a really big program, particularly since the whole COVID-19 pandemic started. And we have seen organizations like you and all of us on this call have been really using Zoom tremendously. We've seen a huge uptick in the use of Zoom, and but it's one of the many resources that we have made available to nonprofits as part of our kind of response to the pandemic. So we have a dedicated web page on our site, which you can see here, which will give you lots of information around their articles, their webinars. There are links to different products and services. Some of them are completely free. Some of them have some fees associated with them, but all of them are specific offers for nonprofits. And I think I mentioned before, we have courses that cover different topics from Google Analytics, Facebook, technology training, planning, and a lot of, and then we also have a special skills track actually that we pulled some of our resources and our courses from the disaster philanthropy work as training track on disaster resiliency and pulled those into a COVID specific course that we've made free to nonprofits everywhere. So those are, that's all available to you. And then we've done a lot of, one of the things that Corinne asked me to talk about today is security. We've been doing a lot of work around digital security and helping organizations think about that. What happens anytime there's a disaster, and we're sort of categorizing, we've been categorizing the current situation as a disaster insofar as it has a lot of the same type of characteristics. And one of those other unfortunate characteristics is that as in a disaster, you have a real serious uptick in phishing and cyber attacks where hackers are trying to get into your systems to steal your data, whether that is personally identifiable information, donor data, credit cards, or they just want to lock your systems down for ransom purposes. So we've seen a lot of different ways of luring people into clicking on clickbait and different ways of getting people, tripping people up and getting access to their systems. One is the fake COVID map. There have been several of those around where hackers are trying to get people to either download the map or interact with the map, and then that will install viruses on their computers. So, you know, again, if you're going to look for a map, you know, look for ones that are from reputable organizations and don't click on the random ones that are around. We're seeing lots of different email phishing attempts where organizations, staff and organizations are getting emails. And I know I've received a couple of myself in the last month saying, oh, you know, there's a special call to action around coronavirus and we need you to look at something urgently. And everybody, because of the current situation, everyone's kind of hyper aware of the need to stay on top of things related to this. So this has been a way that has tripped people up quite a bit. You know, this is another one where coronavirus safety measures, getting people to download a PDF on safety measures, which is, you know, obviously has something attached to it that infects your system. Then we have more not so obvious phishing, where it looks like you've got something that comes from your human resources department. So we're seeing emails that look like they're coming from somebody that you actually know, but if you look at the actual email address, that's not the case. So these are all, we did actually, I pulled these slides from a webinar that we did. It was almost, it was maybe about 2-3 weeks ago now. And the recording is on the TechSoup website, but it goes through all of this in a lot of detail to talk about these kind of phishing attacks and then what you can do about them. And then there's this one was a while back at the time that we did the webinar, but the Netflix scam, like Netflix is giving its service away for free. But that is definitely not the case. So please do not fall for that one. You're not going to get anything for free in that particular situation. And so some of the advice and guidance we've been giving nonprofits is being just really extra careful and diligent about email addresses and calls to requests to click on links, especially if you're being asked to verify information. And if anybody has any doubt, contact the sender, and don't contact them by replying to the email, but contact them by picking up the phone or doing your online chat, whatever system, if you're using Slack or Google Hangouts or whatever it is, but contact the person to ask, you know, did you actually send me this? You know, is this a real request? Just verify, because, you know, it's important to be able to track these things, and it's important to have procedures, particularly around money transfers. We always recommend organizations, if somebody receives a request for a money transfer, or the classic, can you go out and buy me some gift cards urgently, you know, to verify with somebody by phone, text, you know, some other channel. So And then there are tools that in Office 365 and Google, some of these email systems that allow you to filter these types of things better than some older systems. So that's one thing to look at if you're thinking about your email systems. And then some basic cybersecurity tips that we've been talking about: multi-factor authentication. That's where if you try to log into something, you get a text to your cell phone to confirm that it's actually you. Those are great and pretty easy, and most online services now have that built in as an option for you to use, and you should make sure your staff are using that for all the systems that you are having them access from the cloud, particularly if they're accessing these things from home computers. Single sign-on, there's Okta has a great nonprofit offer for implementing a single sign-on, which means that you log in once to one place and it gives you access to all of your different tools so that you're not having to log in separately to a lot of different systems. It also offers a layer of protection, which is important. And then train your staff. Really communicate with them about best practices, about the fact that there is this heightened attempt to get into your systems and your security. And there's also there's an offer on TechSoup for cybersecurity training for staff. So if you want to take that additional step of having your staff go through a cybersecurity training where it walks you through and tests you on what are different fake emails and how you can identify them, that's a really great offer, and it's from KnowBe4, which is one of the big providers of cybersecurity training. And so we have a service and product package offer from them where we can manage the setup of the whole testing process and then the delivery of the training. So, and then the last thing that we wanted to talk a little bit about is what we're already hearing from nonprofits, and then I really do want to hear from you all in terms of what you're thinking and doing in response to COVID and how you're kind of coping with the transition. So we did a survey of a group of organizations recently, and it was a pretty limited group, but this is the kind of things that we're hearing them, what they're doing as they work from home, or if they have a little bit more downtime than they expect. So there seem to be two different types of nonprofits, ones that are able to transition to a work at home or remote work environment where they're able to, things are maybe a little bit slower, and so they're focusing on things that, like I listed here on the screen, so fundraising campaigns, grant writing, updating those websites, getting into those projects that they've been putting off, that they've been needing to or meaning to get to. So this has been giving organizations a little bit of time to do some housekeeping and some cleanup. The second group of organizations are the ones who are not necessarily, they offer direct services, so they haven't necessarily been able to move to a remote work situation as easily, and that's been more challenging. And I think those types of organizations have had to kind of ramp up, and we're hearing a little bit less from them because I think their work life is still quite chaotic. So that's what we're hearing from nonprofits. Would love to hear actually from you all at this point. Would love to, first of all, take questions on anything. I was told to keep this as short as possible. So again, love to hear what the kind of work that you're doing, and then I wanted to make you also available or aware of the webinars that are available to you coming up in this month. There's one tomorrow. Starting tomorrow, and then these are some others that are happening throughout the month. And then, of course, all webinars are recorded and available for free on our website. So that's a very quick run through of everything.
Yeah, it was very informative for being quick. Yeah, so if you guys want to ask Cameron any questions, or again, just start sharing. I know from our nonprofit chamber perspective, I've shared that we are trying to figure out how we can best support nonprofits and transitioning our programs to be virtual.
I'll be happy to jump in, Cameron. I'm been well aware of TechSoup for many, many years, but just within the last few minutes, was made aware of the scope of everything that you do. That's just incredible, and I commend you on that. One of the things that we do at Goodwill is adult education. So we work with individuals wanting to get their high school diploma, and of course we've had to take all of our classes online and are trying to keep folks engaged. And I feel like we've had some success with that, as we too have a partnership with Google, and we do some things with Dell as well. But the biggest issue that we've come across is access. And I'm wondering what TechSoup position is going to be as we move into this next phase of the digital age, I guess, where we're more open to these types of formats, and it becomes a more standard part of our day. I know that in our rural areas, broadband access is a big deal. In the Wichita area, just having the hardware or having a service plan to be able to access information is difficult. And we're always out there looking for resources, but is TechSoup the type of place that we should turn to again be to again be a convener of those resources, or what would your role be within that?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a huge topic across education, across the organization that somebody is with, that is helping school children and children who are kind of in danger of not graduating from high school. Yeah, this is a big concern. We had Oakland Unified School District contact us and say, hey, can you get us 25,000 hotspot, internet-enabled hotspots for our kids, and it's like, not right now, but we do have a program on TechSoup called Mobile Beacon, which does deploy or does distribute hotspots, and I was going to show you one actually. I have one here in my, I use one myself for when I'm commuting on the bus to and from work, so it looks like this. And this one's connected to the Sprint network. Unfortunately, they got overwhelmed with requests out of the gate, and they had to go out of stock, but they're now trying to, bring back stock. And so we're hoping that'll come back. That program will come back within the next month or so. But we are also actively sourcing other hotspot technology for exactly this reason. I mean, everybody's struggling with this, and even if you live I live in the Bay Area where our internet connectivity is fantastic, but I have 3 college-age kids at home who are all trying to do online education. My husband's in the basement doing his job, and so, bandwidth is not always great in my house either. So, it's a challenge for everyone. It's going to take some time, I think, to work out. So I don't, and the last piece I was going to mention is that we are talking to some of the wireless providers. There's something called white space, which is some of this bandwidth that is in between the kind of regulated bandwidth. And there's been a lot of talk of what to do about that white space and how to make use of it. And so we're in conversations. These things are going to take a little while. So I don't have any quick solutions, unfortunately, but it is something that we're actively working on.
Oh no, that's fine, Cameron. Just knowing that that's a space that that TechSoup is looking into and addressing and trying to pull in those resources, that's a huge help for us moving forward, because I feel more comfortable reaching out and if not just saying here's what our need is, but also to be able to say here's what we're doing and here's what our role is, whether it's advocacy or whether it's a resource that we found or something else that you might be able to tap into. That's a good two-way conversation to have. So thank you.
Yeah. We have a very active community on our forums where people are giving a lot of advice and guidance. Sorry, dog. So sorry about that. But we have, the forums is a great place to kind of have conversations with other nonprofits about what they're doing, what they're what they're thinking about. And so we monitor those obviously ongoing and kind of keep track of what people are saying. And sometimes we get great ideas from nonprofits who have discovered stuff and say, hey, you know, you should go look at this. So
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you again.
So in terms of the question I had at the end there, you know, what are, to what extent are you working during this shutdown period, and what are you working on, and what are you thinking about as your next steps, and kind of where do you feel like you need to go from here? That's sort of an open question for anybody.
Okay, it's a shy group, so I'll go, but somebody else has to go after me. So
I have to start calling on people.
Yeah, exactly. Goodwill, at least here in Kansas, we did have to furlough quite a few folks as we were asked to close our retail stores due to the state stay-at-home order. And any staff that is interested in working from home is certainly invited to do so. I'm working from home, as you can see today. And we're more importantly for us, not only with our own staff and trying to accomplish things, but like I had mentioned before, is trying to get our students involved and trying to stay connected within the community, which has been the difficult part, and trying to decide which things we can do virtually and which things we just need to postpone or cancel until next year. One of those things would be graduation, is obviously a big part. So as we ramp back up and our retail stores open back up.
Oh, I think.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Chris, anymore. Chris, we can't hear you.
Yeah, we lost you.
As an organization.
Looks like you can't hear us.
Okay, great.
Now he's back.
Yes.
What's that?
You're back. We missed like the last 30 seconds.
Oh, that's okay. Just saying that as an organization, we had to take stock of where we were and find out what our capability was. And if we did have to transition to completely staying at home and working from home, what that would look like for us. And it was a hardware evaluation, it was a software evaluation, it was a digital skills evaluation, it was a phone system evaluation, it was everything. And I'm sure every organization around the world has gone through something similar. And we feel much more at ease now about moving forward because of that time that we took to take stock and see where we were and to help folks get trained in the things they needed to get trained with. Just a few days ago, I outfitted our CEO with a webcam, which I never would have thought possible, but we got her on board. So it's going to be interesting to see how things develop as we move forward. If our classrooms aren't able to be full, how are we going to supplement that with the online piece? And sorry, more traffic. For our students, they need that structure, so we have to find out how to creatively build structure within a virtual environment. And I'm not sure how we're going to do that yet, but I'm confident we can. Just don't know how. But that's where we're at.
Great, thank you.
Cameron, with the nonprofit chamber.
Sorry, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
With the nonprofit chamber, we had to scramble to figure out how do we shift to this new environment. Not only how do we shift to the new environment, and we are fortunate because we had already been using Zoom some for for occasional person that wanted to tune into a program that couldn't be there or training, but try to figure out how to transfer all of our programming to Zoom. And we we just started back last week with doing some of our paid programming via Zoom. And of course, we have a conference that we have coming up at the end of September. So trying to plan for that. And right now, our plan for that is to go ahead and, complete filling our schedule of presenters, but telling each of those presenters that we want them to be willing to present via Zoom if it comes down to that, because we're so unsure of what the future holds. And then trying to figure out how do we provide the best resources to nonprofit organizations for working from home, for working with clients. And I know one of the programs that we use to coordinate project management is Podio. And we're fortunate we have that because it allows us to share a lot of information besides using Google for Nonprofits. So we can share a lot of files there as well. So we were fortunate in that area. But we work with a lot of small to medium-sized nonprofits that seem to have less resources. So trying to help them, figure out in some cases what is the best tool for them to use that's not going to cost them a lot of money because they don't have very big budgets to be able to do their meetings or their programming or even their board meetings. We had some organizations some executive directors that reached out to me that said, their board members are terrified of having a board meeting via Zoom because it's just all new, right? And so it's just kind of interesting to try to figure out, of all the apps and all the software and all the technology that organizations have available, what is the best tool for each of them to use that will facilitate what they're trying to do. And there's a lot out there.
There are a lot out there, and some of them are better suited for different types of uses than others. So you have tools like WebEx, which have a lot of security features and are better if you're trying to do like one-on-one consultations with kids about their, in the example from called the Panda Institute, if you're trying to have conversations with the kids about their home life or their work or what's stressing them, you want to have that in using a pretty secure tool. If you're having an event like this where it's just sort of open information, like you don't need that level of security. So I know that we did a blog post recently, and I think also a reference chart, kind of a comparison chart of the different tools that you want to use in different types of situations. So there's Facebook. Facebook has kind of an online meeting capability. Obviously Google Hangouts, and then you have more Facebook Live, which is sort of a more public-facing, like anybody can join. I know one of our partner in Italy has been using that on a weekly basis. So. But it is important to go in and understand which of those tools are appropriate for the use case that you're thinking about. So I would refer you to I'm not an expert in the tools, but I would refer you to that blog post that we did that provides some guidance and some links to some resources on that. Yeah, I mean, I saw this morning that the Supreme Court is now going to be having they're going to be hearing cases virtually using, I don't think video conferencing, but audio conferencing. And so I was actually curious. I was going to go to try to find out what tools that they're going to be using for that. I thought that would be fascinating to hear about.
So I'll go. This is Penny again with the Pando Initiative. And because we're school-based and our offices are housed at a district building, we were basically given 30 minutes to move out, pack our things, and we haven't been back since March. And so we've really adjusted, I think, quite well to remote working. We did have to furlough all of our site-based staff because there was no site for them to go to. We were fortunate. We had a couple of weeks for everyone to be able to reach out to all their students, give out all the incentives, and do a lot of things like that. But we're we're working on plans now. If we go back to school and this rears its ugly head again, how do we stay connected with our students if this were to happen again? So we're working on plans now to do just that. And depending on the district, there's some districts that won't let students use, they're not using Zoom, and other districts are. So
Yeah.
it's very, just being sure we're sensitive to what tools the school districts are using. We're sort of in this situation where we can't move until the school districts decide how to move. But we're putting plans into place to see how that works going forward, because we can't just, we were left in a situation where we really didn't have a choice, because we didn't have, they're just like everybody else, nobody really had a plan for this. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask did you have to furlough workers because you didn't have, they didn't have laptops or equipment to be able to work from home, or did you furlough them because they weren't able to do their work?
No, we furloughed them. Number one, we didn't know what our funding streams would be. We're highly funded by some large grants, and we weren't told right away if they would be cut or not. Second of all, because it's a real one-on-one work environment with the students in the schools, and some of our programs work very closely with the parents, we weren't sure how that was going to look. And early on, there was a lot of talk about, and there still is, people that are more at high risk. So there were some employees who couldn't really interact with their students, go to their homes, drop off incentives because they're in high risk factors. We did, interesting enough, about a month prior, we bought new laptops, because all of our laptops for our site staff were Windows 7s, or was it Windows 7? Whatever's going out. So
Windows 7.
Windows 7. So we did, for almost all of our site staff, they have new computers, and they still have them even though they're furloughed. We've been working on grants. This is the time of year where we do our data collection, because we have to report on outcomes to our funders. We've increased dramatically. We have a weekly email blast, and we're making them good news email blasts, and we're getting a lot of great response from our stakeholders saying it's really nice to get an email of something that's good that's happened this week, because there's so much bad news. The one thing that we're still in a holding pattern on is our major fundraiser. We had to postpone it. It was scheduled for the end of April, and it's very interactive, and it's a lot of people, and it's men, community leaders, cooking their favorite dish and serving them to the attendees. So we're working on plans if we have to go virtual on that, how that might look. And I was signing up for one of your webinars because it talked about fundraising on Zoom. How does that look? What does that look like? There's so many different levels of people who feel comfortable with technology. And
Yeah.
just
The
all
the
of those
events and the
different things.
fundraising is going to be the big area for people. And I have heard of a couple of organizations where they do these dinners, and instead of having people cook for everybody, they cook them for delivery, and so people buy a meal and it gets delivered to their house. And I've heard of that, here in, obviously it's easier in a more dense area, but
Well, actually, that's what we're
yeah,
looking at is
oh, good.
the chef would, we're not sure what period of time we would do this, but you would bid on it, and then it would be a dinner for 4 or 8, whatever the chef is feels comfortable with. And then we'd have either
Yeah.
a pickup location or a delivery. So it
Yeah.
could be a hot meal, or it could be warmed up, or we could supply the ingredients and they make the meal themselves. So we've got several different
Oh, wow,
thoughts
that's
on
great.
that. But it's kind of all up in the air until, I don't think we'll know any more until mid-June, to be honest,
Yeah.
on how all that looks. Writing a lot of grants, watching a lot of webinars. I've never sat through so many webinars or Zoom meetings. And frankly, I never thought I had the time to do it, but you know what? You can make time to do it. But we have twice a week, we were doing twice a week staff meetings with the staff that's left. And so that's via Zoom, so that's fun. We've switched out one of the staff meetings. We're doing food for kids deliveries on Thursdays. So that's a way for us to, get back in the community and help our kids, even though they may not be our kids. But so it's all, it's kind of
That's lovely.
learn as you go, adapt as you go. And so we'll just see.
And you said that you are not registered with TechSoup, or you're not familiar with TechSoup?
Actually, I get an email almost every day from TechSoup. Yes, I am.
Oh, okay. Oh, you are. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Great.
I saw that there's some people that responded in the chat too.
I saw Tisha's working from home, using time on grants and training. Social media. Yeah, I think people are really getting their social media game together during this pandemic. We're seeing a big uptake in organizations kind of figuring that out, which is great. Do you have many staff? Do people have many staff that are having to use their home computers rather than taking home work laptops and using home computers to try to?
We don't.
Sometimes there are security issues around that, and so wanted to again point you back to the recording of that webinar around security, where we do talk about, for those organizations where staff are using their home computers to do their work, some steps to take to kind of harden the home network and the home computer so that it's more protected. Just to go back to that security frame.
You mentioned we're completely Google based, and I've been told in the past that that's one of the more secure.
Yeah, I mean,
managing
everything's as secure as the settings that the knowledge of the person who implements the program. So you can have, Google can be incredibly secure. It can also be incredibly wide open. A lot of it depends on how you set it up and the policies and how you train your staff to use it. And what are sharing, how people are allowed to share things and how they don't. They always talk about humans as being the the weakest link in terms of security. You can have the greatest security in the world, and all it takes is somebody to go and click on a link in a fraudulent email to kind of wreck everything for everybody. So having your staff trained and having good policies in place. But do you, just out of curiosity, do you use the free Google for nonprofits offer, or are you using a paid version with the higher security features?
We're using a paid version, I believe.
Okay.
That's a
I
good
think,
question.
Cindy, we use a paid Google business, right? I think. Maybe not.
What's the difference?
We use the Google
Oh.
for nonprofits.
That's the
free.
one we use.
Yeah.
That's the one we use too.
Okay, so that one does not, particularly if you're dealing with kids, that one does not have the more advanced security features that you might need. So something that Google just announced last week is, up to now, they've had the donated version of the kind of basic Google for nonprofits available for nonprofits for free. And now, in addition to Google Basic, they have, I'm going to get the names wrong, but it's something like Google Business and Google Enterprise at discount rates. Obviously, these are subscription, but they come with kind of more sophisticated features. They let you create kind of shared team drives, and then they also, so better kind of collaboration functionality, and then also some of the security features that you don't get with the basic offer. So particularly if you're working with vulnerable populations, it might be worth looking into that. And because this just happened recently, we're now, TechSoup's now kind of, we're looking to locate some consultants that can work with us to help nonprofits, give them some advice and some guidance around which plan to look for and which security features to think about in terms of how they set everything up to make sure that they're setting it up appropriately for the type of work that they do.
We also use Google numbers, phone numbers for our staff instead of giving out their personal phone numbers to clients and their families, because it was becoming unmanageable. They were getting disturbing texts all day and night. So that's worked out really well.
Yeah. Google
Cameron,
Voice, I think it's called, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead,
Cameron,
Cindy.
what do you have to say about Google Drive?
Google Drive, what do I have to say about Google Drive?
Yeah, for security. Yeah.
Okay, so from a security standpoint, again, it's same idea that if you have it set up with the correct permissions and kind of sharing settings, then you should be pretty well set up. The one thing I know about Google is, so I don't know if this happens in your nonprofits, but we often run across organizations where they have people that have grown up using Microsoft.
Cameron, we can't hear you all of a sudden. Cameron, can you guys hear her? No? Okay. Oh.
Drive.
Okay, she's back. Cameron, we missed the last like 30 seconds.
Sorry. So I would say the same thing about Google Drive as I would say, as I said before, it depends on the permissions that you've set up, and the sharing permissions and the access permissions in terms of security. From a functionality standpoint, we see a lot of nonprofits where they have hybrid situations where you've got people who are using the Microsoft Office suite because everyone, grew up using that. They like their Excel, they like their PowerPoint, they know how to do a mail merge in Word. And so you get a lot of nonprofits that are using Google Drive because of the sharing capability is made really easy, but then they're also using Microsoft Office, and they lose that kind of co-editing feature that you get in Google Docs, which is so great. And so for organizations that are kind of these hybrid, we're actually suggesting Box as an offer. If you're a small organization, if you've got fewer than 10 staff, we're really recommending Box because that will let you store all your documents in the cloud. It'll let you store both Google documents and Office documents, and it allows that co-editing functionality. So it's completely free. It's like there's no subscription basis for it for organizations with 10 or fewer staff. Once you get over 10 staff, it switches to a different type of plan, which is paid for all the staff. So, but that's a great solution for organizations that are working in a hybrid environment, Google Microsoft hybrid environment.
Well, that's helpful. I had one question just before we wrap up. If anybody has any comments about, or even Cameron, if you have any tips for organizations as people are maybe potentially some staff working from home and some in the office. Does TechSoup have any, I guess that would be almost a conferencing function, like conferencing, I guess?
You mean for like communication, like Zoom type things, or?
I guess, yeah, just again, or if some people are in person for a program and some people are virtual, if it's a, I guess if it's a staff meeting, you know, if anybody's prepping for that, if they're just gonna have a conference call or a Zoom, even if like most of the staff's in person and maybe some still want to be at home for health reasons. Just if anybody's making plans for that, policies.
Well, before TechSoup's a pretty distributed organization, and we have staff across the US and across the world. And so when we would have meetings, when we were still in the office, there would be 5 people sitting in a conference room and then 5 other people that were online. And what we all started doing is basically everybody would pop up Zoom onto their computers. And so you'd be sitting in the room with your computer open and your camera on. And so you're talking to the person across the room, and then you're also talking to the screen. And, you know, it's a little, it's not great, but at least everybody can see everybody that way, which makes it feel makes the people who are remote feel a little bit more connected. So that's something that we have done. Yeah, I mean, you know, the replacing of the in-person meeting is still being worked out to a certain extent. And Zoom, you know, obviously isn't perfect. I just lost audio for a period of time. You couldn't hear me, and sometimes people's, you know, bandwidth gets messed up and they have to go off of video. And so it's, you know, there are no perfect solutions, and everybody moving to Zoom all at once in the course of a month, like the entire world moved. And that was chaotic. So we make use of other tools. I mean, because we work in technology, we basically use every tool. So pick a tool and we've used it. We use a lot of Slack, which is kind of a chat tool, but it lets you create channels, and so you can have groups. Like I'll have a group of my team, everybody on who manages all the hardware programs, and that's one Slack channel. And so they kind of talk about, oh, did you see this? Oh, this program's changing. The availability is out of stock. It's back in stock. So you have these kind of online conversations that are happening, and they can create alerts. And so or you can have one-on-one conversations, chat conversations, and then you can, you know, with a kind of a click of the button, you could swap it over to a video chat if it gets hard to do it you know, through typing. So, so Cindy, they have to check. Oh, you have to check out Slack. Yeah, it's great, and they do have a nonprofit offer also. I think you get it directly through Slack, but TechSoup does the validation on the back end we do validation for both Google and for Slack, where you go and you get the offer directly with them, but TechSoup verifies your nonprofit status on the back end. So
that's awesome.
Do a lot of work with them.
I actually had never heard of that, and I think that's really, of people everybody having their own individual computer. I hadn't heard of that creative I guess, trick. Since we only have a few minutes left, I just, as I'm finishing up, if Cindy will share, we do an evaluation at the end of these for our grants. And so as that is up, if everybody wouldn't mind that out, and we appreciate you all coming. And thank you especially to Cameron. We really appreciate you sharing about TechSoup, even if we were familiar with some of what you did. I think we could all say we probably learned something. And then I do want to share quickly, if you are unfamiliar, we really encourage you to check out our website. And if you go to events and upcoming events, tomorrow we have a Board University series is kicking back off. We took last month off, and it's starting up again with engaging the nonprofit board and fundraising. And so you can register. Today's the last day to register. That will be on Zoom again tomorrow. We have, if you're from the Wichita area, we have Katie Fitch from Rainbows United coming to share with us. And so she is an expert in fundraising. And then next week's Nonprofit Survival Series will be Reopening Framework with Tammy Allen, co-executive director from Families Together. And she has I guess it's a, what would it call it? It's a, I want to say framework. I guess it's a framework that can be applied to different things. And so she'll be sharing about how we can use that framework for reopening. And then that also next week, we have an executive's role in your organization's social media for the ED Survival Series. So we will be kicking off our ED Survival Series again, and that will be presented by Andrea Hatton from the Hive. And so again, and then we have a QuickBooks workshop coming up, a QuickBooks Online, and that will also be on Zoom, presented by Swindle Jensen, Hawk, and Lloyd in May. And so again, please check out our programming coming up. And if you have any questions or recommendations for these, please reach out to me. You can privately comment if you have any comments for us. You can comment or message me or email me. And thank you again for being here and sharing. And it's 3:50 now. Oh, it's 4. There we go. Thank you again.
Good to see everybody. Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you.
Yep, happy to help. And if you want, I don't know if you want like copies of the slides. I'm happy to send a PDF of the slides over if you want them to distribute to people. I don't know if that's something you want or anything.
That would be awesome. Yes, please.
We'd love to have those.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Great. And Karina, I heard you mention the QuickBooks Online event.